Welcome to the MYBcast, a channel offering podcasts devoted to the art and science of somatic touch therapy. Somatic touch therapy is an alternative for self-care that recognizes the important role the body plays in our day-to-day life. We are fascinated with the mind-body connection, and so are the people we talk with. From pioneers who helped to originate or develop this work, to seedlings of somatic mindfulness who have adopted principles of this work in their massage practices, our guests will uplift, educate, and inspire you. Thanks for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and share. Now let's join our hosts.
Welcome to another edition of the MYBcast featuring the Portraits of the Pioneers. This is our second season, and for a finale of the second season, we're going to try something very different. We're going to do a behind the scenes look at those that are part of making this show possible. So, what we're going to do is introduce our executive producer, Madelana Ferreira, and Madelena is going to ask some questions of both Anna Marie and myself about our backgrounds, just so that you get a sense of who we are and why we're doing this and what we're hoping to accomplish by doing this Portraits of the Pioneers. So let me start off by introducing my co-host Madalena, my co-host Anna Marie Bowers, and who will introduce Madalena. So Anna Marie, welcome here.
Thanks, Richard. This is going to be a really fun exploration for us. I think this will be fun. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Madelana and just give us a little bit of your story, Madelana, how you got into somatic touch therapy at all, and what brought you to helping us out with this Portraits of the Pioneers.
Hi, you guys. Well, I guess somatic touch really started in my yoga life because of the person that I chose to train with. And we touched, we walked around and we touched bodies. And so as I was doing yoga, eventually I got drawn into doing energy work and touch work. So first I learned how to do Thai massage, and then I discovered the Traeger approach. And that was like, I say that was like the second thing that changed my life dramatically. But as you guys know, we weren't calling it that back then. So it just was this delicious, really incredible touch work that helped me anyway, to feel myself. And then I don't, how did I get into the podcast business? I think Rick and I became connected with our sound engineer, Mitch. And I'm not sure, it was during COVID, I think. I think we started a podcast during COVID, no? Oh, no, it was
No,
for the
no, no, no,
Traeger
no, no.
conference.
It was the Traeger conference that you put together at Pearlstone, that you were coordinating that, and that is how it started. And in building up to that, one of my clients, who's also a sound engineer, said, let's do a podcast about this. So we did. We interviewed the people that were going to be appearing at the conference, and in prepping uh, the conference is really how it started. So,
That's right. That's right. I, I'm glad you remembered that. But we did do podcasts through the pandemic.
yes, we did. Yes, we
It
did.
was a kind of an interesting way. And then I can't even tell you, how did Portraits of the Pioneers get started? You guys. That'll be my first question to you.
Well, I think I introduced the concept to Anna Marie, and that was something that I just had this feeling that no one was really talking about the people who really were the pioneers of this work. The work goes back 50 years. So we're both members of the board of the Foundation for Somatic Touch, and at that point, it felt like a natural thing. Let's start talking. We'll start with Traeger because we're all part of that community, but we'll expand it out. And we started to do that in the second season when we started reaching out to people outside the Traeger community. But yeah, I don't know. What do you want to add to that, Anna Marie, if anything?
No, that's exactly what happened. We just had a conversation and both kind of feeding off of the idea of it's the people that do this work. It's who are the people, not just about the work and what it does and all of the miraculous results that everybody is seeing all the time. Who are the people who are practicing? Why are they practicing? How did they get into this in the first place? And so just born out of that curiosity of who are the people doing this work. And for me personally, jumping on this Portraits of the Pioneer podcast was all about challenging myself to be comfortable in front of a camera on on Zoom or whatever, and being more out in the public eye, because I'm not it's not my normal lifestyle to be doing these kinds of things. And so I was challenging myself a little bit too. How could I participate? How could I help? How could I also challenge myself to really be present for the people that we're interviewing and think about what it is I want to know about that person.
Wow. Well, you're doing a great job. Do, do you continue to feel challenged, or is it becoming more natural for you now?
It's never been natural for me to stand up in front of a crowd ever. The very first time I gave a speech in high school, I had note cards and everything. And I remember saying the first sentence, and I remember saying the last sentence, and I have no idea what I said in between. But apparently it made sense.
That's funny. Um, how did you get started with somatic touch work? Both of you, Anna Marie.
But, okay, I was gonna say I'll start. In the first part of the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, I had some health issues that they diagnosed as probable MS. Back in the day, that was not an unusual diagnosis for anything that medicine couldn't explain. So I sent information out to friends of mine who were at that time involved with what was considered alternative kinds of thinking back in the 70s and 80s. And a very good friend sent me information about the Traeger approach. And Betty Fuller was doing a demonstration in Yellow Springs, Ohio, which was only half an hour from where I lived. And I was very familiar with the area. So I decided to go and see this demonstration of this work that was supposed to be really good with MS, because a diagnosis at 29 that was gradually debilitating, not curable, and eventually fatal wasn't something I wanted to accept. So I went to this demonstration. I was in short blown away by what I felt when I watched her work on this huge big muscular football player, and just step back and pick up his big toe while he's laying on a massage table, and pick up his big toe and just kind of sway his leg, and his whole body just kind of rippling smoothly like water. I said, wow, that's pretty darn amazing. It didn't look jerky. It didn't look jarring. It didn't look uncomfortable. It didn't look painful. It just looked comfortable. So she finished her demonstration. There were hundreds of people in the audience, and she said, the class starts tomorrow and we have one opening left in the class. And I felt like that message like kind of swirled around the whole auditorium and was for me. And I thought, yeah, right. That's but I was compelled to go down and talk to her. So I just went down to talk to her and said, this is incredible. I feel like there's something here. I'm supposed to learn how to do this someday. She just looked at her watch and said, well, we don't start till 9 a.m. You got time, go home, make your arrangements. I said, I'm a single working mom. Oh, go home and call in sick. You're fine. I said, "No, yeah, I don't have a massage table." She said, "I brought extras." I mean, everything I came up with, she had an answer for. So I said, "All right, well, we'll see what, I can't afford it." She's like, "Don't worry about it." So I said, "All right, we'll see what happens." So sure enough, I went home, I made some arrangements, utilized some sick time and personal time that I had for work, showed up at the training the next day, and 6 days later, all the symptoms that I had been experiencing were gone. So I was pretty impressed, knowing full well that just because medicine can't explain it didn't mean they were right. So they could have been wrong and something else could have happened. But meanwhile, I was very impressed. So I decided to take more training and more training and more training. And the more I learned, the more I realized what I didn't know, and the more I learned what I didn't know, the more I wanted to know. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
Wow. That's a great story.
Hmm.
Um, I have a really great story to share about my introduction to Traeger, but I'm going to save it till after Richard tells about how he got involved in somatic touch.
Well, I had absolutely nothing to do with the touch or any type of body work or anything other than the fact of being a receiver. Um, I had a pretty successful career in working in New York City as a producer of various mediums, music, film, television, print. Um, and I always, always, always would find time, at least once, many times, 3 times a week, to get body work in the middle of the day. Just take a break and just kind of like let the stress that's been building up inside of me for the very stressful type of job that I had just release. So I was completely sold on the power of touch. And every type of modality there was, fortunately, being in Manhattan, there were practitioners for everything. So it was quite an experience. And for me, it wasn't until later on where I had an opportunity to, well, somebody was running a big massage school in New Jersey and wanted me to produce a training series for them. And at that point, I decided that I would do that. And what I would do is also go through the training program itself. So I literally became a licensed massage therapist, unbeknownst to me that I would ever use it. But I just felt like it felt good. I knew what felt right and what was working, and I felt it would be a good idea to really understand the principles of what this work is about. So I did. And it wasn't until I met you, Madelana, that you introduced me to the Traeger approach. And at that point, it was completely different than anything else that I was doing. And I was intrigued enough to do a level one training with Roger Toll, who was my first teacher in Princeton, New Jersey. And after that, I felt like, well, I had enough. But something kept on coming back and saying, well, maybe there's more to this than what I got from that class with Roger. And sure enough, there was. Gail Stewart was my second teacher in Princeton, and it was a completely different class. And she was very much into the hookup aspect of it or the connection of it. And that is something I never, ever, ever forgot. As a matter of fact, I talked to Gail in one of our interviews with her about that connection that we made and she shared with me. And I continue to give her credit for introducing me to that world. And then from there, it was just onward and upward.
Hmm. Well, I can relate because Gail was my first um, Traeger instructor, and she pretty profoundly changed my life. So, but what kept you in it, like to make it a career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I never thought it would be a career, quite frankly. It was something that after Gail's class, I wanted more. I then took Dean Juhan's anatomy class, and that was the bomb. It was incredible. And I walked away from that class saying, why are we not teaching kids in grammar school anatomy with somebody like Dean. Everybody's got a body, and you would think that that would be something to really teach somebody who's going to go through a life with that body, right? And the caliber of teachers at the time were so good that I just wanted more. Kate Rose then came into the picture, and Kate was similar to Gail in her style and approach. And I took Mentastics with her and level 3. And then I did some work with Bill Scholl, level 5, 4, that sort of type of thing. More classes with Dean Juhan as well. And I just really, really enjoyed the wisdom and the knowledge and just the world that these people were sharing. And I actually think that's the reason why I felt that this podcast had to be done, because those people are absolutely amazing. And I want the world to know that they were the foundation of what we're now calling the somatic touch therapy. So that was my way of honoring our teachers, and just about every one of my teachers appeared in the Traeger approach aspect of it. So that was my way of giving back.
That's really cool. So I didn't think it was going to be a career either, to answer that question. And my trainers are no longer with us. So Betty Fuller was my beginning trainer, and she was a very vibrant, vivacious, engaged with life person. And it was stimulating, inspiring. She asked me questions, when I'm laying on the table and somebody goes to extend my toes. And growing up very thin and very small, I would always get cramps in my feet in the cold weather and things like that. And so as soon as someone starts to flex I was like, oh, I'm going to get a cramp in my foot. And I jumped off the table and I'd walk around the table, and then I'd get back on. Okay, try again. I didn't get a cramp. I just was sure I was going to, right? And so after about 6 times of doing this, Betty Fuller came over and said, what's going on? So I explained to her, and she said, well, what would happen if you just laid there for another minute? And the thought had never crossed my mind. Just really had never crossed my mind. You have these habits that are with you in your body and how you move through space and time. And I said, gee, I have absolutely no idea what would happen. And she said, why don't you try it? I said, okay. And it was that simple, somebody could actually, like, I could feel my feet, for the first time ever. So, and then I was blessed to have Milton Traeger do my level 2 training. He came to Ohio for, I think, one of the only trainings he ever did in Ohio. And there was something about, because now I was really intrigued, now I've experienced the work myself and I've seen the changes in myself, and I'm thinking, oh, this has so many layers here. And Milton's presence, just his sheer presence with you when you were there in the classroom, when you were there on the table, when he was working with you, it's like nothing else in the room was there. And he didn't, he's not a super charismatic kind of guy, just a regular flawed human being like the rest of us. But there was something about his ability to be present for the person that he was directly engaged with that just stuck with me. That feeling of what that felt like. It's a feeling of being seen, of being heard, of being witnessed. It's just really, really a powerful feeling.
Wait, I have to ask questions about this. So is what you're sharing about how he engaged with you, or what you witnessed in him engaging with somebody else?
Both.
Okay.
And it was that sense of presence that I felt, that I learned, oh, this is what I can take to my clients because I have experienced this. How he always used to say, you can only give what you've experienced. So I've experienced this sense of acceptance for where you are in the moment, acceptance for who you are in the moment, and let's see what could happen. And that's
I'm like so curious. Like, can you remember the interaction with him? Like, what did he say to you, or what
oh,
was it that happened for
absolutely.
you? Like, tell.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I just don't want to take up all the time. Um, sure, I was the demonstration model, and he was showing the compressions on the chest. And it was just a hand on the chest, just a rest, what they call in other circles, like in infant massage, a resting hand, like hello, I'm here, you're here, just hello kind of thing. And as he began to work with both the um, rib cage, the excursions of the rib cage, and the bounce that you can get when you gently compress a rib cage and let go, and as he was working with that rhythm and following my breath, there was some kind of synchronicity going on with the breathing and the movement that again kind of internalized this body mind combination kind of feeling. I had no experience with touch stuff either in my life, none. So this was all, I was very much coming from a, wow, this is interesting kind of perspective. And so does that answer your question? It was just
Yeah.
that
I,
experience. And then I saw him work, similarly with other people. He would say something about, somebody's hip, oh, this, and they would go, yeah, this, blah, 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 whatever their story was about their hip. And he said, all right, let's what how could it be, kind of thing. And then they would get up after the work with him and feel very different and be changed. And it was just one person after another. And don't don't personally, I do personally believe he was just a flawed human being like everyone else. It wasn't like he was a master healer. It was something about presence that was really powerful for a human mind body connection.
so listen to this. What do you guys think of this? Because I think it's really important what you said. I feel like what somatic touch therapy really is all about is that presence. And
Mhm.
not only the practitioner being present with the client, but the client being present with themselves, and in the presence of that other person having the permission to be present with themselves. Right? So when we talk about somatic touch therapy, we we have to kind of share that experience that you had. I think. Um, what do you think, Rick?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the idea of just coming out of massage school, and I never really worked with anybody per se. I was working other jobs. I would work on family and friends and so forth. And it wasn't until I had a really interesting opportunity to work with cerebral palsy. And I just, because I went to my Traeger practice and training just to learn from my own personal experience, never anticipating really using it as a practitioner. Um, but when Shay Hammond came into my life and we worked together, and I saw the amazing results that were happening, I said, wow, this is very, very powerful work. And it needs to get out there. And I was fortunate enough to be gifted with that touch and that sense of mindfulness, because you're exactly right. What I was feeling in that body, I would feel in my own body and be able to be part of that. And I remember at the time there was some other things going on. I was involved with the Traeger organization in various capacities. I think at one point I was vice president of the USTA, and just other things. And I, I got a box of I got a delivery from Switzerland. This is I I guess this is before 2020, and inside the box was about 60 plus 70 DVDs and a note from Bill Shaw saying, "See what you can do with this." And I looked at them, and they were all Milton Traeger's classes for the last from the I guess the late 70s up into the late 80s, early 90s. And I just binged through those, and I just realized, oh my God, this is something extremely special. And and the one thing that just kept on coming up with Milton is he kept on saying, "You people are going to take this much further than I've taken it, much further, much further." And I just said, "Wow, we got to save that." We're able to get some money from his endowment. I put together a group of people that would take it, put it up in the cloud so that it would be saved forever. And I just think that's just really the beginning of people just understanding what this work is and how simple it was, but how profound it was. And here's somebody who never was in touch therapy, that who knew that I had a skill to do that. But watching him do it and doing it on other people and seeing the results, it's like I have for a long time had to go through the imposter syndrome saying, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. But people just kept on coming back with results. And I just said, this is a thing. It's bigger than me. So let's do something with that. So
Hmm.
did I answer your question? I kind of got off on a little tangent there. Sorry.
Isn't that the strangest thing though, that imposter syndrome? And you yet they keep coming back to you. Once I started a practice and clients kept coming back with these miraculous kinds of things happening, you're like, really? Wow, this I guess it works. It's
True, 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 true. And we've built a clinic on that in Cedar
yeah.
Grove, New Jersey, and it's we do quite well with it. And people, it's moving into other realms of work. We're finding right now, for example, anxiety and just just the world that we live in is very, very trauma driven. And this work is phenomenal for dealing with people with trauma for sure.
And one of the things that occurred to me not too long, well, a couple of years ago, I participated in a pilot class about writing about your clients and what was happening with your clients. And it was Jack Blackburn who taught this writing class. And there were only maybe 6 people in the class, but the opportunity to share with other practitioners stories about our clients and seeing the similarities between all of the experiences that our clients were happening, it was like ding ding ding, we need to tell people this is happening. So I was kind of feeling the same thing Richard was feeling. This needs to get out, people need to know, and other practitioners need to be validated. You're not all imposters. This is real. Something is really happening here. And if we all talk to each other, write about it, talk about it, share it, we're helping each other and we're helping the general public.
Right. That whole thing about talking about it, writing about it, forcing yourself to find the language to describe what you did or what it felt like or how you would how you would explain it
Mm-hmm.
to somebody. It's such a it's such a juicy um I don't know, it feels like it's almost magical because it makes the information become more available, more accessible. And then you start to become almost like more convinced for yourself. Like I find, when I'm writing or when I'm talking about it, then when I talk to the next client, I'm more convinced of what I'm saying. And so it feels like a really necessary thing. And I guess, this podcast is an answer to, first of all, the incredible publicity that somatic touch, somatic everything is getting now, and also to the lack of peer reviewed research that's out there. Like we have to be the ones to tell what's happening. Because, I mean, even just to use the example of Milton Traeger, because I think maybe it's wrong, but Feldenkrais, I think they were more, attracted to writing about the work. But it wasn't so with Milton. He didn't want to write about it for some reason. I don't know. Do you know the backstory on that?
I don't know Milton's backstory on that other than it was a sign of the times more than anything, I think, with the alternative learning and, the times of Esalen and self-development and all of these different theories about self-development and personal growth and enlightenment. It was just a time where there were a lot of theories that the organization that formed around the theory kind of felt like it was a secret or it was precious or sacred or that's to my way of thinking. That was kind of that's kind of the sense I made of it, but I have no idea why. I know that stories were told that he didn't really necessarily want to even teach his work. He just wanted to do his work. And Betty Fuller was a big part of encouraging him to teach his work. But not, a lot of the people that we've interviewed have actually worked with him during that time. Dean Juhan, Bill Scholl, Gary Brownlee, who also is deceased, was also, really involved at that time too. So
Gail Stewart,
exactly.
Wow. Well, this is a good point to take a pause for us on this particular episode because we're running into about our 30-minute side. But we want to come back and we want to talk a little bit more about some of the people that we've interviewed and what we're hoping that what these interviews will do to stimulate the thought and the growth of this work. It certainly is something very, very special. And we feel honored to be part of that. So, but before I go, I just want to say that Madelana, being an executive producer, what that job is about, Anna Marie and I get to sit in front and talk people and have fun with it and all. But what you see on these episodes are Madelana Ferreira talking with the editors, talking with the sound people, talking with the scheduling of it, and putting it together. The reason an episode comes out every Sunday is because of Madelana Ferreira, our executive producer. So I thought it's important that everybody knew who the person is behind the scenes there. So
thank you, Richard.
Absolutely. And along with that comes some feedback for us, which is always welcome too. And so we're hoping that our episodes are gradually improving in terms of our skills and abilities too. So Madelana is just a critical part of the whole process. So we're so glad she's here with us today.
Thank you, Anna Marie. You may not know it, but I do have a background in theater. So I think that's ultimately why I ended up in this position.
Well, why don't you take us out, Madelana, and we'll have another episode where we'll get a little bit deeper into it, and hopefully the whole idea behind the scenes of these two episodes is who are we and why are we doing this? So,
well, I'll just thank all of you. Thank the two of you, of course. Thanks to our staff and our crew who puts it all together, and thanks to our viewers and for liking what we do, for sharing what we do, and for spreading the word. Let's make this podcast a great success. Thank you for joining us at MYBcast. We hope you found the stories inspiring. This series has been made possible by our hosts, our production team, and our guests, whose willingness to share their personal stories is vital to educating the public about the power of somatic touch. We're all contributing to creating positive change. Thanks to our sponsors, Mind Your Body, the Foundation for Somatic Touch, and Somatic Mindfulness. Find them on the web at myb.llc. foundationforsomatictouch.org and somaticmindfulness.co. Please like, share, subscribe, And join us again for more interesting, compelling, and heartful stories.